this a lot in the decisions I make. I continue to hurt myself to do things for others. Like, and that's just common. That's common behavior where we're, Sally has an appointment. If we help her with her appointment, we'll be late for ours, but that's okay. And that's been a huge shift. Like, my feelings are above and my worth is above this man or this person. And when you go into such a low state and you go into a treatment home, and your first just psychological pattern, is to find safety. And I think that for me, because this reoccurring theme of men coming in my life and like saving me in the sense of providing me with some kind of kindness, has now that's destroyed me in the end. And I found my way and everything's fine in my relationships, but for a long time I put that man above me because it was safety, and nobody told me I was worth more than that.
Right.
And that's a fucked up view, but that's where I see women in all day, every day.
I think there's a lot of that. And I think there's a lot of, not only no one's telling you your value is above that. Mm-hmm. I feel like women in general are being told constantly that their value is less and that they shouldn't, like, there's plenty of times where women are being told, why are you even talking in this space? Or why are you even like being pushed down lower and lower? And, that was something in your story too that I was listening on, is just the fact that like you, I feel like there's actually a lot of people who have a similar story, a lot of women who have a similar story to yours. The problem is that the one difference between your story and a lot of other women's is that at that key point where it was about to get a whole lot worse. Mm-hmm. And then like it was going to turn into, this is going to be the rest of my life. Your dad was able to come in and help and then get those new lawyers. A lot of people, I'm not like, I gotta,
people. I know, I say women because I'm a woman. So I feel like I can relate to that.
Right. But people in general could not afford for brand new lawyers on a juvenile case, especially when the whole family has cases going on right now.
And they can't afford it. They see, one thing that my stepdad did was teach me how to live normally. Like, you get up, you go to work, you make your food, like very normal life. And that was the first time I ever saw a glimpse of that, and I held on to that like my anchor. And that's why I feel like I'm successful today. Like he presented that, but so many women. And the girl that I was in treatment home with, she has gotten these past 10 years, she has fought cancer, and then she beats the cancer, and then she gets another cancer, and then she beats that cancer. And so she had 6 brothers in and out of juvenile. And when I went to visit her, she goes, I was like, who's helping you? And she goes, nobody. My mom, I'm a woman. My mom doesn't believe I need help. My brothers do. And they were all locked up.
Right.
And so that's heartbreaking because, yes, I had that. And thank the Lord Jesus, like, I had that help, but nobody else I knew. And I was always, like, looked at as that, like, well, you have help. And it's true. Like, that's frustrating to be locked up with a girl who is about to go to TY, same as you. And I remember, like, the people that left the next morning was the one I was supposed to be with. And I remember those girls going. And they left, and Lord, I don't know where they ended up at. But that was a pivotal moment in their lives that probably didn't end well.
Right.
And that is a huge difference.
And like, for your mom, the advantages that she ended up taking, like the first advantage she got was when she was working as call girl work. Mm-hmm. And that was an advantage you saw for her. And for that to be the major advantage that she could take advantage of, and then on top of it later on, for the main way she can think of increasing her wealth as running a marijuana business at a time in a place where
very illegal,
they're going to crack down on that super hard. says a lot about the opportunities that she thought
She had.
were available to her.
Because I think about that. We've talked about this, and it's something like me and my mom don't talk about a lot because it brings up a lot. But one thing that I kept seeing that and I know that it's just her psychological patterns of life and what she thought was right and what she watched in her life. She had no other example. But what I keep saying that I always say be better than your mom. I always tell my son be better than me. I was better than my mom, and so on and so on. So I truly believe like we need to be better as a generation. But she kept getting in trouble
Mm-hmm.
on purpose. Like, and that is still something I struggle with. I have kids. I will never put myself in a situation like she did. And I love her to death, and I know that was the only way she knew how. And I think she saw that opportunity for the marijuana factory, and jumped on it because we talked about it recently. She was like, he taught me a skill I didn't know, and he helped me make money, and that's why we moved here to Colorado. I followed her because she didn't want to get in trouble again for weed, and she loves weed. She's like Bob Marley, but she she still has that issue with authority.
Mm-hmm.
She'll still spark up a joint in front of a cop car while we're driving, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And it's this, and like she'll probably listen to this and hate it, but it's like, why? Like, why? What triggers you to keep testing authority? And I think it's the ego and that power struggle, because I feel like I go through it too, but like in very weird ways. Like, I'm gonna jaywalk when I'm not supposed to. But I'm more fearful of it. And she's kind of past the fear and like more like, I'm gonna test my boundaries still. And that scares the shit out of me. But it also tells you where those psychological patterns form. And a lot of people are dealing with this today, getting in trouble, getting in trouble, getting in trouble, thinking they can beat the system.
That is that mindset of beating the system. That is constant. You can go on social media, and that's like people advertise that constantly. This is how this 40 ways to make $1 million tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
40 ways to lose weight, like lose 50 pounds next week.
Mm-hmm.
40 ways to become the number one influencer in a month. Like, no, those aren't real, and you're trying to beat a system that is like
It's not going to be beat.
right.
You're going to eventually get in trouble.
Yeah, there's some downside to it. Like
Yeah.
there is a cost to what you're talking about right now, and are there cheats and things like that? Are there ways do people get special advantages? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is that those advantages tend to be within the system. They aren't like, oh, that person just didn't know that they could, do this one thing, or, that they don't have to not light up a blunt in front of a cop.
Right.
Like, it's
Right.
like they don't, and I honestly, I get that attitude. I have it a lot. And sometimes I have to really check it, which is if you tell me to do this thing, especially when you don't have to tell me to do this thing, I will want to do that thing more than anything else in the world. And I want to do it right in front of you just to show you. And it's like, even if it's despite the nose on my face, like I will do it just because you made such a big show not to do it.
I think that's something you leave with too. You have been in corrections, and if I don't do that, I'm getting a different charge. But when you come out in the real world and some idiot tries to test you
Yeah.
and thinks they're a big bad wolf, and you're like, you have no fucking idea. You think I'm going to be scared of you? And that's where that comes in for me, because like I've had trouble with bosses because I'm just like, you're doing that to be an asshole.
Yeah.
And you're disrespecting me and my worth, because like that's what I'm big on. Like, don't treat me like an ant in an ant field because I have overcome all this to be here in front of you, and you're damn sure not going to put me back where I'm from. You know what I mean? Like that, just that ego struggle. And that's where I go wrong, because if, like you said, if you're telling me to do something a certain way because you just want to have control, that's what I won't allow.
Yeah. I've always had that mentality. The thing is, one of the things is I was in the business world first, and also I had dealt with lots of conflicts before going into prison, And I realized, I'm like, okay, in the real world, when there's a conflict, I can always just remove myself and it'll generally die down and go away. In prison, it's the exact opposite. It will not go away. You have to.
It gets bigger.
It gets bigger, and it was something I had to learn. Like, you have to learn it very quickly, and it can come at your own cost. If some guy is like, you can't. Every little thing. If someone comes at you and is talking a bunch of crap, and you're like, oh, that's no problem. Nope. Now you're gonna have to deal with everyone coming at you and saying all the things that that person was just saying, and then trying to do, and then they're going to see, well, what else can I do to this guy? Because he let that happen, and now he's letting everyone else let that happen, and now what else can we do? And now it's you versus everyone.
Yes.
And it is
dynamic switch so fast.
Yeah, you cannot walk away. You cannot calm down. You are now stuck in this place. And even if someone is just trying to make something happen, just to make something happen, even if it's I had one of the worst instances I had in there was had a cellie who wanted to fight, not because he wanted to fight. It was because his friends in the day room thought it would be funny if we fought.
Right.
And so they were lacing him up.
Maneuver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were lacing him up to try and get us to fight. And I kept on explaining, why do you want to fight? What advantage is there?
Exactly.
You're going to mess us both off over what?
But because of a laugh, I think, and during this time and like being with the girl who came and moved in with juvenile and all the things, that's kind of how it was for me. I was the youngest one. We already went very south with what happened. So now, and I tell myself that I made it okay in my head. Like, I always felt like I was in charge. But in reality is I was terrified and I couldn't buck up when I needed to buck up because I already got jumped. I've already fought these girls again. Like, and that was just a lesson to you work your dynamics. And I use that in life now. It's nothing like that. But you realize, I know some people that just say shit just to say shit. And that's something I'm incapable of anymore. I can't just talk in, like, with outrageous accusations and not back it up. When I'm going to back up, I'm going to back up. Right? So that's a lot. I feel like that's one thing about me and other people I meet. It's a lot different. They were able to have that freedom to just be bullshit and just say whatever and whatever. I can't. And I'm almost frustrated that I can't. Like, why can't I say, like, I'm going to go beat a bitch ass too and not do it? You know what I mean? Because, like, that's just not part of my nature. But you get out of the system with all these, like, irks. And I have all these things that it just frustrates me and annoys me. Not for normal people, but because I'm so serious-minded, I feel like I've had to, like, digest a lot in their terms because I have my perspective, but I know my perspective is nothing like anybody else. So I have to make sure that I'm letting my friends, I guess, be free, and my kids too, and not come with this, like, serious-ass shit. And, like, you can't say that, like, especially with my son, he's 10. I have to let him be a kid.
Right.
And not bring all those fears in. And I talk to him about drugs a lot because I'm so scared of that addictive thing. And I have an addictive personality in so many ways. And I found the gym to be my addiction, but everything has a balance. And everything is toxic when it's too much. But trying to have a normal mindset, and I really hate the word normal. I don't think anybody is normal. We all come with our shit, but I just, like, I just forgot how to be, like, goofy, I guess. And, like, how do you feel about that? Being from where you're, like, coming from.
From where I'm coming from, I honestly, I relish in the goofy. I always, even in prison, I tried to bring that. That was one of my biggest fears, is that would go away.
You would lose that, yeah.
I would lose it. It would get taken from me. And believe me, there were moments where it goes. And there are other moments like you're talking about. You reminded me very much of, there's lots of times where I have to very much keep myself in check because I'll be like, someone does something out in the real world. They do something that
It's not acceptable.
I'll put it this they one very common one. Someone disrespects me out in the free world.
Right.
If they did the exact same thing in prison, I would get all up in their face and make sure put an end to it immediately, stop it, end the story, be super loud. Yes. Make a very big point that ends now.
Yeah.
Now it's like
we have to be delicate with the dynamics.
Got to be delicate. Yep. And then I still feel that like pull, like that really big, because in prison that was a life or death like instinct I had to learn to immediately just snap and jump on that person and like go from chilling with my own boys to we'll drop
cut
that
it out right then and there.
Right, drop it right there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then address it. And then someone does that out here, and I'm gonna be like, hold on.
You have to hold it, and it is the hardest.
Yeah.
It is the hardest thing to hold because, like, even being from Houston, like, there's things that are passed over. So you get out, you go into an environment with people that have been in, and we all have a mutual kind of social norm. But then I moved here, and we have, all kinds of people from all over the area, all over the place, and I'm trying to fit in with this, and there's just things that somebody wouldn't do where I'm from, and they do it, and like being in the system and all the things, and it's so like grimy to me because I'm like, you might not get caught, like if you're talking shit about somebody or whatever and just being like dragging their name through the mud, you might not get caught, and that's gonna bother me because now I have to face you, and I don't know how to tell you like you're wrong because like what book am I reading out of? What can I point to and be like, that's grimy? But you just know, like, you don't do that. And you want to have friends. So you kind of, like, say, okay. But it's hard to have these triggers because I don't have, anybody, like, being, moving states. You don't have that connection.
That's absolutely tough. And you do, like I said, to me, that like when it comes back to that, like kind of being relaxed and being able to laugh, I do still try and make it a point. I try and take that feeling, like what we were just talking about, where when that guy does that thing, instead of holding it so close to me that it becomes personal.
Yeah.
I try and just use the anger to fuel like this.
Yeah.
To make it so that
Definitely.
like because the thought that goes through my head is basically it's like I want to tell him, be like, do you know who you're talking to right now?
Right.
Do you know what's going on? Let me tell you about what I did.
Yeah.
In fact, let's have a long talk right now.
That's hard.
Yeah. And and so instead of doing that, I stop and I'm like, all right, I'm upset. The reason I'm upset is because we can't have that conversation and I'm hurt from my time in there. And I want to stop that time in there. I want to stop someone else from having to do that time that I did.
Right.
So I need to focus that anger onto this and to doing this right. And then that's where I take that anger and put it into this. And then that makes it.
It fuels the fire.
It fuels the fire. It puts that focus onto something else. And then I can take, and then when that's all burnt up, then I can go home and I can laugh at whatever. Like I can be jokey. I can hang out, play games, just let it just relax and enjoy it. Like, and really it is, then I can look back and I can really, the biggest part where I can like really let loose, I can be, is just go, I'm not there. Like, no matter how bad things are, no matter how stupid that guy was, no matter how much control that guy had over my life at that, 10 minutes or whatever, I'm not in.
And what I've realized too is like, my values are rubbing against somebody else's values and they're not aligning. So that's where I get triggered, because I had to really get like really nitty gritty into this. Like, what is wrong? Why am I getting so mad over somebody else? I know better.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's because the value of loyalty, and I've realized that that's my main thing, is loyalty, doesn't align with my value of loyalty. And loyalty is like something that I struggle with in my life because I'm so fixated on loyalty, and it took me a long time to figure out what was triggering me. And it was when somebody wasn't loyal to me, or in the terms of, and it's as simple as, I'm going to meet you at 8 a.m. and they don't show up.
Yeah.
Or last minute cancel. Like that does something for me, because I'm like, I took this time, I'm serious about this, you're not. And so I'm like, okay, why do I have such an issue with this? Like, when this stupid, it's little stuff. People have lives, people's changes, plans. But I realized the transition is really hard. And I realized that the main thing it's poking at is the sense of, I'm committed to you and you're not committed to me. And I felt like that. And I had to dig deep about this too, about, my mom, it's not, she never cared enough to not do what she did, but she kind of like betrayed me. Like, I see it as like, you had a child, you're supposed to be there for the child, and you left the child, like, stay with the child. So that happened. And then my real dad, I was never worth enough for them to make better decisions. So when somebody doesn't feel like I'm worth showing up in an 8 a.m. meeting, it does something to me. And that's deep and it's rooted. And that's one thing that I really struggle with in my life, because I know that it's not normal to get this upset. And when people cancel, I shouldn't get this enraged. Like, but it goes back to that little girl inside that's like, I wasn't worth it. And that's been like the past year, something I've learned, because I couldn't get why these little things would just set me off. And the more we understand ourselves, the more we can help.
Yes, and honestly, I get the same way, but like I'll put it this way: I don't get as upset about that, but I am I have the same issue with people wasting my time.
Yeah,
and whether they're late or whether we're talking about something or whatever, or they are not. They're intentionally doing, or it seems like they're intentionally doing something that's like a huge waste of time. And I know exactly where that comes from for me. For me personally, it's actually, when I went to prison, the thing that scared me the most was that I was just going to have, 5 to 10 years of my life that were just gone. Mm-hmm. And basically, it was basically like I was going to be dead for 5 to 10 years.
right.
And that scared me more than anything. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to make sure I was going to do something with that time. And the idea that now that I'm out and I can actually do things, that someone is going to not show up on time. And then when they show up, they're not ready, or when they're blah, 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 like they're fiddling around. It's like, yeah, I can't.
We can't get mad.
Yeah, it's like I'm not going to get angry.
Can't get angry, yeah.
But I'm also that's where that comes from. That is specifically comes from prison, and that was not there before. But I also understand that not everyone has that, and even like guys I was locked up with don't have that issue.
Yeah.
And I feel like in part because they didn't have that fear, and a lot of guys who were very successful in prison, they did well because they didn't worry about the time.
Yeah, that's a trigger of time. Yeah. Exactly. And some people don't care about time. Some people don't show up on time. I have a very good friend that never is on time. And that's not personal. She's not trying to hurt me. I put it in my head. I'm like, okay, you're not going to be on time. And then when I do that, it's fine. But yeah, that's a huge one.
You can find Shakedown merch, graphic novels, and other projects at waywordpress.com. That's WAYWORD press.com. If you would like to support The Shakedown, get exclusive content, and watch episodes live, you can support us at patreon.com/ The Shakedown. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment to give Malone that inner peace he so richly deserves.